course, every week here and all across ESPN's coverage. And Swagoo, you played 9 years in the National Football League. I just wonder, when you first saw that moment last night, what were the first thoughts that went through your mind?
Gee, it was disbelief. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And look, I thought I had seen everything. I was a part of the Dallas Cowboy team when Albert Haynesworth stomped on Andre Gerard's face, and I was on the bench as a defensive player and didn't know what was going on and saw the big scramble. But last night was just one of those moments, and you and I talk all the time about code in the NFL. We talk about those lines that you don't cross. So I was shocked, and to say that after all the football that I've watched throughout my entire career is a lot, man. I saw Woody last night talking about it. A lot of guys I felt anger, I felt frustration, and then even afterwards, I felt like Myles Garrett didn't really understand what he did. So, last night it was just one of those moments in the league where I felt like we needed to say, this is not an indictment on NFL football players. This is not how we operate. This was one of those isolated situations that'll be remembered forever in the NFL. And unfortunately, it's going to be on Myles Garrett's career for as long as he plays football.
If Roger Goodell or anyone at the league office were to call you and ask for your advice on how to handle this, the discipline that will come from this, what would you advise them to do?
16 games minimum, G, a full season, and then some kind of plan or proactiveness putting together to allow him to get back in the league. I think there should be a plan for him to get back in the league, but I see the duration of this season and then taking it to 16 games throughout the next season. Now, and here's the tough part for the league. Not only was it an egregious act, it was what they've been trying to eliminate forever. Helmet to helmet, like literally. And I know a lot of people have said it, if Myles would have hit him with the crown of the helmet, what could have potentially happened? But that's a real thing. And then you have the legal side. Now, I'm not sure if Mason Rudolph and his team would press charges. I don't know that. But there is two parts to this. There's a discipline from the NFL and a possible situation that it could be a discipline from the courts. So it's just it is so crazy. Like I literally said, Myles Garrett had to black out when he was doing that. Like there had to be some type of he just flipped, he snapped, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself like, dude, you don't even realize you could have knocked this man unconscious. You could have did grave damage to his head. I felt bad in the moment for every party that was involved, but I mean, you just can't excuse that. You can't find any way around it. You can't talk about the things that transpired from that point up to when he swung the helmet at Mason Rudolph. It's been so many fights in the NFL. It's been so many fist to fist. It's been so many guys pulling at each other's face masks. But when you see that situation happen, and for almost every NFL player I know last night getting text messages in disbelief about what had transpired, you know it's something that's just not in the ordinary.
All right, Swagoo, travel safe today. Thank you, my friend. I'll see you next week.
All right, G. Later.
So let me bring this back out to the table here. And Vilma, that was the same thing you said when we were in our meeting this morning, that he must have just completely lost track of where he was and what he was doing in that moment.
Yeah, he 100% snapped. I've been around players, when they snap, you just see it. When you look in his eyes, it's just not there. And then they come to, and then when he finally came to was when he was on the ground, frankly, and David DeCastro was on top of him, and you could see he just stopped. Yeah. He stopped and realized, oh, man, this is what I just did. And then when he's on the sideline sitting on the bench, you could tell he's reflecting on what he has done. Now, I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying that there was clearly a moment that there was just a lapse of judgment.
So let's go over where we are right now. The Cleveland Browns have played 10 games this season. They are 4-6. They are in the playoff chase. But by definition, there are 6 games left in their regular season. We just heard Marcus Spears saying if it were he would suspend him for 16 games. If I were making you in charge, all of you, each of you individually, Lewis, I'll start with you. If I were making you the person in charge of making this decision, what would the discipline be first for Garrett?
Well, there's no question he wouldn't see the field anymore this year. And then we would think about I would be thinking about extending it into next year only because of this, all right? And again, I don't care what happened leading up to it. you're seriously, you're talking about you could have potentially injured this guy for the rest of his life, if not taken his life. And that's not hyperbole. That's not being dramatic. How can you not go ahead and sit him down for the rest of this year and maybe think about extending it even further because of that simple fact right there? I know Pouncey's going to get suspended. I know Ogunjobi's going to get suspended. A bunch of other people. But this is different. It's at least this year.
Yeah.
At least.
I want to talk about the other guys as well, but the only issue I have with the rest of this year is it feels that there's a randomness to that. So would you say the rest of this year, if there were 9 games left? My point is, if this happened in week 2, would you suspend him for the rest of the year? If
I
so,
probably would. I still would.
My point is that would be a 14-game suspension.
Okay, so
now you're cutting it down to 6 based on how many games are left in the year.
Well, you know what? I don't know. I mean, what would the arbitrary number be? Would it be 10? Would it be 12? Yeah, it'd be something significant like that.
That's
probably
what I'm
double
saying.
digits.
We shouldn't base it on how many games are left in the season.
I think part of it is there's 6. The personal conduct probably for off-the-field stuff is 6 games. And I think that it makes it clean at the end of the season. The NFL can break with this, and then they can move on, and then he has a way to earn his way back and go through some counseling, all those things. So at the beginning of next season, we're not leading off talking about why Myles Garrett isn't playing. They want to put this in the box, and for the same reason as Berger was talking about, the Rooney's pressing charges. That's why I don't think they're going to do it. They're one of the flagship programs in the NFL. They don't want to drag this thing out. So at the start of 2020, we're still talking about a situation that is dirty and ugly for the league. They want to be promoting their product, not answering questions.
The more I hear about us talk about it, Marcus talk about it, and I know what you're saying as to just clean it up, put it in a box and move on. But then we're also talking about how severe his actions were. So if his actions were that severe, then it needs to be justified that we say, look, 10 games for me. It will be 10 games minimum. And we do need to talk about next year to reinforce how serious of an action that he committed and how grave it was.
What was Ron Artest in basketball? I mean, that went into the stands, but still, it was 72 games of an 82-game season. That's 14 NFL games? I mean, it's got to be 10, maybe more.
Yeah, it's got to be double digit.
Which would take us into next season. Yeah. I want to make sure we have time to have a lengthy conversation about Maurkice Pouncey's role in this, because I understand that in theory, when he attacks Myles Garrett, Garrett is down on the ground. I sort of understand Pouncey's mindset. Let's talk about Ogunjobi. We talked about him a few moments ago. He's the one who comes running up behind.
The idiot. He's the idiot.
The idiot.
He's the coward. He's the idiot, yes.
Okay. If you were in charge here.
3 or 4 games.
You'd
I would suspend him 3 or 4 games, yes.
Sure.
And deserved. And then, as I said, if I need someone, a player, not a coach. I need a player on that team to pull him to the side and tell him how much of a coward he is and how he needs to stop doing that.
Because basically what you did post game was you stood up there.
He lied
and you kind of looked real defiant. You were like, "Hey, I'm defending my guy."
Right.
You do the same thing. No, your guy was getting beat up on the ground, but you didn't want you saw Maurkice down there.
Exactly.
And you were like,
you don't want any part of that.
Maybe not. Maybe I'll just hit this guy.
You heard Myles Garrett have some remorse in his voice afterwards. Like, I realized I shouldn't have done that. Like you said, there was a defiance there. He didn't justify it, or he justified it. He didn't sit there and say, what I did was wrong. I got caught up in the heat of the moment. I hit another guy in the back when he wasn't looking.
I'm just saying, even if he wants to defend his guy, fine.
He did.
I mean, Maurkice was defending his quarterback. Then defend him against the guy who's attacking your guy.
Exactly.
And that's why I think 3 games, if you isolate that and take out everything else, and you saw that happen during a game, that's a multi-game suspension.
Yes.
Regardless of everything else that happened. So that's what it is.
In the NBA, if you come off the bench during a fracas, we know there were rules for that. This is coming running in from absolutely nowhere with absolutely no good intentions, at least none that were obvious. Yeah. Okay, obviously our coverage of this rolls on into our next hour here. I'm told Ryan Clark is going to join us as we continue and more. Our group is here after a terrible night. Jeremy Fowler, our reporter, was standing 10 yards away from this.